Dr. Michael Klaper. Dr. Michael Klaper is a gifted clinician, internationally recognized teacher, and sought-after speaker on diet and health. In addition to his clinical practice and private consultations with patients, he is a passionate and devoted educator of physicians and other healthcare professionals about the importance of nutrition in clinical practice and integrative medicine. Dr. Klaper is the author of Vegan Nutrition, Pure and Simple, and has produced numerous health videos, webinars, and dozens of articles for both scientific journals and the popular press. As a source of inspiration advocating plant-based diets and the end of animal cruelty worldwide, he contributed to the making of 2 PBS television programs, Food for Thought and the award-winning movie Diet for a New America, based on the book of the same name. Dr. Klaper teaches that health comes from healthy living, and he is dedicated to the healing and flourishing of all living beings and our planet. In 1972, he graduated from the University of Illinois College of Medicine. He served a medical internship at Vancouver General Hospital in British Columbia, Canada, and received training in surgery, anesthesiology, and orthopedics at the University of British Columbia Hospital in Vancouver. Additionally, he was trained in obstetrics at the University of California Hospital, San Francisco. From 1992 to 2015, Dr. Klaper served as director of the Institute of Nutrition Education and Research, and is also a previous member of the American Medical Student Association's Nutrition Task Force. Currently, he is a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and also serves on the advisory board for the Plantrition Project and the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. Dr. Klaper, thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh. Can you hear me in the back? Good. Well, thank yous are certainly in order. Thank all of you for coming. Thank Mahesh and his lovely family for their hospitality. I'm staying at their house in Pinner, and they're just wonderful hosts. And thanks to Suzanne, who had the brilliant concept of this presentation, of today's event. For the past several years, I've been going around to the medical schools on 3 continents and talking to the first, second, third-year medical students. I want to reach them before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brain. And when I step up to the microphone, the first thing I say is, I want to give you the lecture I wish someone had given me 50 years ago. That lecture was missing. Did I? 50 years, my God. I started medical school in 1968, and there was no HIV then, there was no global warming concerns, there was no Uber then either. We did have penicillin and IV fluids, but I've had almost a 50-year career in medicine. And when I get up to the microphone, I tell the students that you as students are learning how to diagnose and treat a whole assortment of diseases, from leprosy to smallpox to tsutsugamuchi fever. But the reality is, when you open the door in your waiting room, in your clinic, in the emergency department, at the outpatient surgery clinic, anywhere, you're not going to be seeing leprosy, smallpox, and tsutsugamuchi fever. What you're going to be seeing is a large group of people with a small group of grim diseases: obesity, clogged arteries, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and a host of inflammatory diseases affecting every organ system in the body. And when the young medical student looks up the cause of these diseases, well, how did these diseases happen? She usually runs into 2 words that stops all further thought. Etiology unknown. We don't know what the cause of these diseases are, and so we can't cure them, but you can manage these diseases. And that's what medicine's become, disease management. I don't know about you, but I did not go into medicine to manage chronic disease. I went in to cure people. And every one of these diseases is reversible, every single one of them. But nobody's telling the medical students that, not telling them where these diseases come from or what to do about them. It's no secret where these diseases are coming from. In the space of my 50-year medical career in my country, we've become a fast food nation, as the previous speaker outlined so eloquently. And it's certainly happened in your fine country here. The folks in your nation love fast foods just like they do in my country. And the results on your shores here have been the same as they have in my country, and a tsunami of obesity has swept through your population, as mine as well. I wish someone had told me the effect that what our patients' daily diet has on their body. This idea of nutrition, it's this vague thing, as Bill said, make sure you don't run short of vitamin C or selenium, and that's what nutrition's come from. But nobody, in my years of biochemistry, physiology, nobody said, here's what happens to food when you eat it. I wish someone had told me that when you eat a diet, and eat a meal based on whole plant foods, here we have a lovely salad and hearty vegetable soup and some quinoa and zucchini boats there and some green and yellow vegetables. When you eat a meal like this, and if an hour later after eating this meal, I were to sneak up on you with a needle and a syringe in my hand, and when you weren't looking, I drove 5 cc's of blood and let it sit in the glass tube for an hour and spin it down centrifuge, the blood would look like this. The red clot goes to the bottom, the liquid part of the blood, the serum, rises up to the top. And the serum should be crystal clear. You can read newsprint through normal serum. That's the way your blood should look after you eat a meal. But nobody ever told me that if you eat a classic Western meal based on meat and dairy, eggs, etc., you eat a dish like this, and the heavy fats in the beef, the butter fat and the cheese, the egg yolk and the mayonnaise, the vegetable oil and the fries, the butter fat and the ice cream, all this fat oozes out into your blood. And for the next 5 hours, your blood looks like this. This creamy material here, this is called lipemia. It means blood, it means fat in the blood. Postprandial means after eating. This is what your blood looks like after you eat a fatty meal. And I was serious about that. Now, yeah, I must say, not everybody shows it this optically densely, but everybody has a wave of fat that goes through your bloodstream after you eat a fatty meal. How can you not? Where else is it going to go? And I was serious about that 5-hour number. Here's Kuo's classic study. They gave someone a fatty meal at hour 0. They draw blood once an hour for 6 hours. And they take those 6 blood tubes and put them one after another into an instrument, a spectrophotometer that measures how milky the blood is looking, how fatty it's getting. And you can see the blood getting fattier and fattier and fattier and fattier. It takes a good 5 hours to begin to clear the fat out of the blood. Well, that's an interesting facet of physiology, but think of what that means when you look at how most people on this continent and my continent eat. They start their day off with something fatty, and for the next 5 hours, their blood is running thick with fat, and the fat and the cooked animal protein, the vegetable oils are irritating, tearing up the internal lining of their arteries, the endothelial layer, setting the stage for atherosclerosis. It goes through their fat stores and sticks there, increasing abdominal obesity. It clogs up their insulin receptors, inhibits enzymes that deal with glucose transport, and they wind up insulin resistant. And saturated fats are pro-inflammatory, and this fans inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And this goes on hour after eating breakfast. You eat breakfast, and for the next 5 hours, inflict this damage on your body. It takes the liver till about noontime to begin to clear the breakfast fat out of the bloodstream, just in time for lunch. And people send another wave of fat through the bloodstream. And for the next 5 hours all afternoon, your artery walls are getting ripped up, your abdominal girth is increasing, inflammatory reactions are increasing, you're getting more insulin resistance. It takes till about dinner time, it's about 6 in the evening, to clear the lunchtime fat out of the bloodstream, just in time to visit the colonel and send another wave of fat through the bloodstream. And the blood stays fatty all evening. It takes the liver till about 10 o'clock at night to begin to clear the dinner time fat out of the bloodstream. When on the way back to the bedroom, you polish off that half pint of ice cream, and another wave of fat goes to the bloodstream. And even if the person, oh, I just eat wild-caught salmon. I don't eat, I take the skin off the chicken. I'm eating healthy. Welcome to camp. Stop kidding yourself. This is not a healthy diet. This is still a high-fat diet. And the reality is most people are keeping their blood fatty all day. Stuff never clears out of the bloodstream. Every doc who comes out into the waiting room and calls a patient should know this is what their bloodstream looks like. If they came up mid-morning, mid-afternoon, stop kidding yourself, doctor. This is who you're dealing with. Now, meals like these, as they sweep through the abdominal fat stores, stick there, and it increases abdominal obesity. And at least in my country, I suspect it might be similar here, a wave of obesity has gone through our society, and there's a lot of health concerns with that. Do we get alarmed about that? No. What we've just normalized it. Well, that's who we are now. We're Americans, we're fat. Got a problem with that, that's your problem. Okay, I'm big and I'm happy, and don't bother me with your medical concerns. And you get the attitude, yeah, I know I'm carrying too much body fat. It's okay. It's not okay. Not if you want to be healthy. Obesity is a state of inflammation. And when I have my obese patients in the office, I want to dispel the illusion they have that it's okay to be obese and healthy. I've got a plastic model of an obese abdomen that's been cut in the sagittal section. This is what it looks like. And I get real with these folks. And I tell them there's two kinds of fat on that big abdomen of yours. Underneath the skin, you have the subcutaneous fat, and this stuff is metabolically active. And the main product it secretes are estrogens. It's the largest estrogen-secreting tissue in the body. If you are a woman with a breast lump, the last thing you want is 30 pounds of estrogen-secreting fat plastered on your belly, pumping out estrogens. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. Estrogens make the prostate gland unstable and foster prostate cancers. If you're a guy, the last thing you want is 30 pounds of obesity-driven body fat plastered on your abdomen. These estrogens are no joke. They create a significant amount of disease in the body, but not as much as the fat on the inside. The fat that wraps around the intestines, the visceral fat, and this stuff is metabolically active because it puts out inflammatory cytokines. These are nasty molecules. They inflame tissues all over the body. These are just some of the diseases that are driven by inflammatory cytokines. And our portly patients and friends and neighbors are living in a bubble of illusion if they think they're truly healthy with all these inflammatory molecules swirling around their bloodstream coming from their abdomen. Excuse me. Now, I've been focusing on fat, but this is a get real lecture, and my patients have to get real. I tell them there's a lot more than just fat in that blood. It's not just a matter of fat or no fat. Lots more than of just fat in that bloodstream. First of all, there's all the salt. This is a high salt diet, a high sodium diet. And you don't even taste the sodium. It's in the cheese on the pizza. It's in the spaghetti sauce at the Italian restaurant. It's in the teriyaki sauce at the Chinese restaurant. It's in the frozen dinners. It's in the bag of crisps. It's been long known, of course, that the sodium ions stiffen the arteries. They make you retain fluid. That makes the blood pressure go up. That sets you up for heart attacks and strokes. But we're now also understanding that too much sodium ions in the blood turn on genes that set off autoimmune diseases. And these people are setting themselves up for lupus and ankylosing spondylitis and various autoimmune diseases. A high salt diet is not a healthy diet. More than just salt in that food mixture is all the sugar. Now, half a teaspoon of sugar in your tea is not going to cause anybody any harm. But we've taken to eating sugar as a food. When you are eating a candy bar, a donut, cookies, you're eating a chunk of sugar as food. And 100 grams of fructose and sucrose flood through your tissues. And these sugar molecules stick to your proteins all over the body. It's called glycosylation. You glycosylate your proteins. This is not a good thing to do. Why? Because if you have sugars and proteins and you combine them in the heat of the body, you reproduce the Maillard reaction. This is, in the bakery, what turns bread brown. And that's fine to do on the surface of a loaf of whole wheat bread. You don't want to run the Maillard reaction on the proteins in the lens in your eye. That's a great way to give yourself cataracts. You don't want to run the Maillard reaction in the elastin fibers of your skin. That's a great way to age them and crack them and age your skin. You don't want to run the Maillard reaction on the inner lining of your capillaries in your brain. That's the membrane across which oxygen has to get into your nerve cells. And yet we're eating sugar as a food daily. We're hurting ourselves, and if you need to remember why you shouldn't eat sugar as a food, let me give you this little visual reminder. Here's a lovely young woman about to do that act. She is going to eat a chunk of sugar as food. And she does. And she floods her tissues with sugar. She glycosylates her proteins. And 6 months later, eating sugar as a food ages you. You're creating what's called advanced glycation end products. Don't worry about the name. It's the initials is the issue. These eating sugar as a food ages you. Now, all these detrimental changes from foods that I mentioned so far have to do with vegan junk foods. And that's a real issue. And as Bill was trying to say here, we use that term whole food plant-based. It's almost become one word, but whole food, full stop, okay? We're talking about foods like they grew out of the garden, beans and tomatoes and carrots, yes. But as soon as the hand of man gets involved and you start concentrating these sugars and creating these bizarre chemicals, then you create a bunch of junk that hurts you and it just gets into the root of your tissues and damages you on a cellular level. Now, I am going to be talking a bit about meat, but I didn't want to let the vegans off the hook thinking, well, I don't eat meat, so I'm okay. No, you need to eat healthy. Ill vegans don't help the movement, to say the least. But when a person decides to base their diet upon animal flesh, which is the majority of our friends and neighbors and patients who are walking around out there, it's a meat-based diet that we've been grown to eat. And nobody's to blame officially. Your mother didn't know, my mother didn't know. They wanted the best for us, and they were told that meat makes your children strong, and so we were given this as children. But again, this is a get real lecture. I wish somebody had told me what happens when you eat a meat-based diet. Let's talk about what goes into your blood after you eat a piece of animal flesh. Nobody eats raw meat. It's all cooked. The very act of grilling the steak, the very act of cooking that chicken breast, there's cholesterol in every animal muscle cell, and the grill oxidizes the cholesterol molecules. Well, oxidized cholesterol is a highly atherogenic molecule. It works its way into the wall of the artery and sets off inflammatory reactions that draws in the macrophages that start the foam cell formation and all the processes that go along with forming atherosclerotic plaques starts with oxidized cholesterol. So everyone who bites into that burger or that chicken breast is starting to injure their arteries just from the oxidized cholesterol alone. The very act of cooking animal muscle means you're going to be cooking the proteins and nucleic acids, and the heat oxidizes those molecules, tears them apart, and you create some nasty reactive aldehydes, glyaxyl, acrolein, malonodialdehyde, and these damage your chromosomes. They tear up your genes, and you are creating mutated, damaged genetic structures as you flood your tissues with this after a meat-based meal. Then there's new 5-GC. This is a sialic acid that only animals make. This is only found in meat, And this sets off inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And our paleo friends are giving themselves a shot of new 5GC 2-3 times a day. And the sequelae that I'll be talking about is not a great surprise given what this stuff does in the body. Then there's good old endotoxin. Where does endotoxin? The medically trained folks in the audience will know endotoxic shock very well. Same molecule. What is this stuff? Where does it come from? It comes from the slaughterhouse. When the animals, and all meat passes through the slaughterhouse, even organic, grass-fed beef, etc., they all pass through the slaughterhouse. And as the carcasses are eviscerated, the gut bacteria spills all over, and every cutting surface in the slaughterhouse is filled with, or has a layer of gut bacteria from the animals. You can culture E. coli, Pseudomonas, Salmonella, Enterococcus, Salmonella, Shigella, cultured off every cutting surface in the slaughterhouse. Well, so what? Well, they get on the surface of the steaks and the chops and the chicken breast, gets wrapped up in cellophane, sent to the supermarket, where in the meat case, under the ultraviolet light, these bacteria die. And when they die, their cell walls break up. And they break up and release these nasty lipopolysaccharides called endotoxin. Ooh, nasty stuff. If you want to know what endotoxin does, take a walk around this lovely daisy here. And it sets off your platelets, clotting, releases anaphylatoxin, depresses your heart, releases histamine, releases tumor necrosis factor, releases free radicals. Nasty stuff, endotoxin. And endotoxin is heat stable. Cooking the burger does not get rid of the endotoxin. And again, our paleo friends are giving themselves a little shot of endotoxin 2-3 times a day. There are consequences to that. Endotoxins make your gut leaky. That's going to allow food proteins, the cell walls of bacteria and fungi to leak out and flow through your tissues, through your joint tissues, your immune tissues, sets off reactions that you don't want to deal with, and inflammation throughout the body. The old TMAO, trimethylamine oxide. There's a big lesson in this molecule. The food we eat determines the microbes that live in our gut. You eat a bunch of sugar, you're going to summon up sugar-eating microbes. Well, you eat a diet based on animal flesh and eggs, you're eating large amounts of carnitine and choline. Well, that's going to summon up a population of microbes in your gut that eat carnitine and metabolize choline. Peptostreptococci, Clostridia. And they don't care about you. They're just waiting for that next steak or chop to come down. And they will take the carnitine and choline and turn it into trimethylamine, which your liver will oxidize to trimethylamine oxide. This is a molecule from hell. This drives cholesterol into the artery walls. And there's already been reports of these young paleo guys dropping dead in the gym, and when they looked in their arteries, they were an old man, even though they were ripped looking on the outside there. You're as old as your arteries, and this kind of diet and this molecule will age you badly. The very act of cooking animal muscle is going to oxidize the proteins and the nucleic acids, and you're going to create a whole host of heterocyclic amines that are carcinogenic. And because of the anatomy of the intestinal tract, the mass of meat with the surface coating of carcinogens rubs on the same part of the stomach all the time, or the same part of the colon, and month after month, year after year of rubbing these carcinogens on the same part of the gut wall, surprise, surprise, these meat-based diets are associated with a high risk of malignancies. Then there's heme iron. The he-men who think they need to eat meat, well, that's where I get my iron. And that's right, you're talking about the iron in the blood of the animal. And that's heme iron, and yes, we do have a need for iron. But of course, plants have iron in them. All those dark green leafy vegetables or dried fruits, they have iron. But that's non-heme iron. Is there a difference? Yes, there is. The non-heme iron from plants, your body has a say-so at this level of the gut wall how much of that iron it wants to let into the body. And you don't want to wind up with iron overload. Heme iron doesn't pay any attention. It just goes straight into the body. There's no way to slow down the absorption of heme iron. And this will give our red meat-eating heme man an iron overload, which increases the risk of strokes. And it feeds reactions that split bile salts into carcinogenic substances that will raise the risk of colon cancer. And then, as was implied earlier, the animals in the feedlots are fed bushels of grains that are sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, antibiotics, growth promoters. And as the animal sits in the feedlot eating all these chemicals, well, they accumulate in the animal's muscle. And so every burger, every chicken breast has the accumulated antibiotics, growth factors, herbicides, pesticides that animal was fed. And finger looking good. Well, maybe so, but it's quite a chemical concoction that you're consuming. Well, I just eat fish. Again, we've been treating the oceans like sewers, and virtually every creature pulled out of the ocean today has measurable amounts of mercury and pesticides, dioxins, and these microplastics that are showing up everywhere from our profligate use of these molecules. So this is the reality of a flesh-based diet. And I hear my young colleagues promoting paleo diets and keto diets. Man, I want to eat that meat 2-3 times a day. I've been a physician 47 years. I would sit these young clinicians down who are so exuberantly promoting these kind of diets. I said, do you really know what you are doing, what you are advocating? You're saying it's okay, yep, I'll eat a paleo diet. It's okay to keep these molecules percolating through your tissues hour after hour, day after day, month after month, year after year. You just keep this in your tissues constantly. And then 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we're shocked when the tissues become inflamed. We're shocked when the autoimmune disease shows up. We're stunned when the arteries clogged up. How could that have happened? Oh, he sprouted out a cancer. Oh, random event. I would say, doctor, as a scientist, how can you close your eyes to the reality of what you are advocating here? And very importantly, in my country, the Colorado River cut the Grand Canyon day after day after day after day. This is the power of persistence. You are postulating, you are promoting the idea, my paleo doc friends, of washing these molecules through the tissues time and again, time and again, time and again. And I asked them, are you going to be around when the person passes that first bloody stool 7 years down the road from their colon cancer? These folks, they lose weight initially because they say no caveman ever milked a dairy cow, so they're down on dairy products. Yay, paleo, right? No caveman ever ground wheat into flour, made donuts and coffee cake, so they're down on flour products. Yay, paleo, they're right. And there's no caveman ever crushed the fat out of olives and poured olive fat all over their salads. They're down on vegetable oils. Yay, paleo, they're right. And if you pulled the dairy and the oil and the flour products out of your diet, most folks trim down. And their lipid profiles get better. And their glucose tolerance gets better. And they'll say, see, it's a healthy diet. See, he feels better, and his lipids are better, and he's less glucose intolerant. Yay, this is the diet he should be on for the rest of his life. And they defend it vigorously. Again, I'll say, you're going to be around in 9 years when he gets a stroke. You've long since moved on to your private practice. You just saw him in clinic, made this recommendation, which the patient follows. They listen to it. And the doctor looks young and fit, and he's telling me eat paleo, then that's what they do. And you'll never see that patient again. But on your advice, they're packing their intestines full of meat 3 times a day for the next 10, 15 years. You're going to be around when their joints light up from autoimmune arthritis. You're going to be around when they get their stroke. You're going to be around when they develop their colon cancer. I asked, do you really know what you're doing? And I get a lot of pushback. Well, but their cholesterol is much better. But what are you really brewing in their colon? What are you doing to their microbiome with a high-fat diet? What are you doing to their risk, that woman's risk of breast cancer? What are you doing to this guy's prostate gland? What are you doing to their immune systems and setting them up for autoimmune diseases? Doctor, do you know what you're doing with this advice? Do no harm applies to dietary advice as well. And we can do a whole lot of harm by these offhand, magazine-driven pieces of dietary advice that may have tremendous, grave implications. We know that plant-based diets are compatible with long, healthy lives. If you look at the blue zones, where the most centenarians live around the world, they eat largely plant-based diets. No pure vegan diets, and I'm not making a case for that. But the majority of calories that disappears down these people's gullets grew out of the ground. Even the Okinawan folks get most of their calories out of sweet potatoes. Meat shows up once or twice a week in small amounts. No question that time has shown that plant-based diets are compatible with long lives. But nobody's followed a paleo diet for 30 years, 40 years. Nobody really knows what happens. And common sense is telling us, we're not mountain lions, we're not stoats. We are not carnivorous apes. And yet, my noble profession, we practice medicine like what our patients are eating has no effect on these diseases. In front of you, and they're obese and diabetic and hypertensive and clogged up. And we ask them about their genetics, we ask them about their smoking. But to ask them about what they're eating, it's like Harry Potter movie with Voldemort, the name that must not be spoken. Ooh, don't ask the patient what they're eating. Yes, ask them what they're eating. That's why they're sitting in front of you, obese and diabetic and hypertensive and clogged up and you saw that lovely picture of the head in the sand. As practitioners, we largely do that. What a disservice, what willful ignorance on our part. Comes down to the simple truth, your body is never not looking. You can't tell your body, look over here and have a cheeseburger there. What is that? I didn't do anything. What? Who are you kidding? Your bloodstream knows, your body, your whole tissues know. It's time to stop kidding ourselves. I've got a sign in my office, and people sit in front of me, Doc, how did I get this obese and clogged up and hypertensive? It's the food. And the second line says, it's been the food all along. And they're looking for, it was that pesticide apple that I ate 12 years ago, blew me right up. No, it's not. Well, on some level, it wasn't the apple, though. It's the food we've been eating. It's the food. I wish somebody had told me in medical school, talking about the missing medical school lectures. This is when I heard Suzanne's title for today's talk, I said, yes, that's exactly what I've been saying to the young students. And I tell them your food is chemically alive. When you eat anything, within minutes, molecules of that food are washing through every cell in your body where your DNA lies unfolded. And the food molecules wash through your cells and they play your DNA like a piano. They turn genes on, they turn genes off. They turn enzymes on, they turn enzymes off. Every meal changes us on a genetic molecular level. Food brings in not only nutrition, it brings in information. We can't be shocked in this digital age. And here's a good example of it. This is from Dr. Ornish's prostate cancer patients. Now here's a patient with an early prostate cancer. This is a genetic printout here. These red patches here, these are oncogenes that promote cancer growth. Put the patient on a whole food diet, 6 months of phytonutrients washing through their cells and none of the cooked meats, etc. And same patient, these red oncogenes turn green, turned off. Okay, our food changes us. It turns our genes on and off, and we need to not ignore that any longer. Because we ignore this at our peril, because this is where immunity lies. This is where aging lies. This is where inflammation lies. This is where cancers begin. You don't need to be a geneticist to understand that the genes that are going to be turned on by this fuel mixture and all the contaminating molecules that it contains, the genes that are going to be turned on by this stuff are fundamentally different set of genes that are going to be turned on by this fuel mixture with all these plant-based phytonutrients that are stabilizing, that are antioxidant, that promote tissue repair. It's a difference between 1 and 0. And we got to stop kidding ourselves that this doesn't happen. Eat a paleo diet, it's good for you. Well, you're saying wash this through your tissues, day after day. What do you think the set of genes that you're going to turn on is going to do? Comes down to one sentence. Your genes may load the gun. You may have a genetic propensity towards a condition, but whether it really manifests in your body or your patient's body determines on what you're flowing through those cells. Your diet and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. And you need to, if you're our practitioner, you need to impress this on patients so they don't feel powerless. In fact, they have all the power depending on what they choose to have for lunch or dinner. Every meal changes us. This won't be a big surprise. It changes us either directly by washing through our cells and turning genes on and off like NU5GC does with inflammation. But also the food we eat changes the microbes in our gut, and they will change us because their byproducts get into our tissues and exert their own effects, including on our brain. A lot of the waste products and metabolic products that these microbes create are serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine. These are neurotransmitters that change our emotional states as well. So it brings us to the diagram made by my friend Dr. Montgomery, who's a cardiologist in Houston. And he said, from the tree trunk of bad nutrition comes all these evil fruits of heart failure and high blood pressure and allergies, et cetera, et cetera. And it's an important concept. I wish somebody had told me this when I was in med school, because to practice medicine without caring about what your patients are eating puts the doctor in the same position as the blind man and the elephant. And you're all familiar with this. Blind men come upon an elephant, each grabs a different part. One grabs the trunk, the elephant's like a snake. One grabs the tail, the elephant's like a rope. One grabs the leg, the elephant's like a tree trunk. They all have hold of the same elephant. None of them have the faintest idea what a whole living elephant really is. Well, that's the problem with the way the specialists practice diseases these days, practice medicine. Because this toxic diet bubbles through all the organ systems, setting off various disease states, and depending on the person's genetics, going to determine which specialist office they find themselves sitting in. But the cardiologist sees the clogged arteries, and the endocrinologist sees the type 2 diabetes, and the physiatrist sees the sore joints, and the rheumatologist sees the lupus, and the neurologist sees the stroke, and the dermatologist sees the psoriasis, and the gastroenterologist sees the Crohn's disease, and the colitis, and the general surgeon sees the diverticulitis. They're all looking at the same disease. It's what their patients are eating. And they need to know this because of the blessed corollary, because the reality is that if the doctor can help their patients see this connection and change them to a whole food plant-based diet, most of these diseases go away quickly, within weeks. They disappear. I wish somebody had told me this. Would have changed every diagnosis I made, would have changed every treatment plan I made in 47 years if I had known this. Well, I learned it 10 years, for the last 35 years I've been tuned into this. But it certainly would have changed the entire trajectory of my medical career if somebody had told me this. And the good news is these diseases go away. Whole food plant-based diet, the change is one of the most spectacular, life-affirming, clinically exciting set of changes in all of clinical medicine. I wish somebody had told me this. I wish my colleagues could understand this. It's just stunning. You take an obese person all clogged up on a bunch of meds for their blood pressure, lipids, etc. You put soup after salad, after bean chili, after vegetable curry through their systems. And within days, the obesity to melt away. And the arteries open up. And the high blood pressure comes down. And the joints stop hurting. and the asthmatic lungs wheeze less, and the migraine headaches go away, and the psoriatic skin clears up, and their bowels start working, and they turn into normal, healthy people who don't need a lot of pills and potions and procedures. And I tell my patients I want to see you in two places only, at the health food store where you're buying your tempeh, and out on the bike path where I'll wave at you. Because they shouldn't need a whole lot of our services unless they fall off their bike and they need to get an x-ray, etc. But by and large, we should be around for just acute care medicine. The patients shouldn't need to see us chronically, and this is what happens. And they're the most grateful patients in the world. They've taken their own lives back in their own control. These diseases go away. And we're not honest with the medical students. They're chronic diseases. Once on insulin, always on insulin. High blood pressure is a disease you must treat the rest of your life. And this is what the young students get told. And pharmacosclerosis sets in, that the only treatment is another hypertensive agent, or raise their metformin dosage and see them back in a couple of months. That's bankrupt medicine. That can no longer stand. We know better. It's unethical to withhold this information from our patients any longer. These reversible diseases. And the young students need to know that, and that's why I'm going around to medical schools telling them that these diseases go away with a whole food plant-based diet. Somebody needs to tell you that, and so I'm the guy doing it these days, along with folks in the American Society of Lifestyle Medicine. They're starting to get to that. The Brits have a little way to go there, as I addressed them last week. Again, these are reversible diseases. And for the clinicians in the audience, let me drill down a little bit. The folks with the rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, that non-specific sore joints that people get, a lot of it has to do, again, with when you're chewing on a chicken breast or a burger, some fragments of those proteins, especially if the person's been drinking alcohol or has a little bit of increased intestinal permeability, a little leaky gut, some of those molecules of the meat protein leaks into the bloodstream. Well, now you've got the collagen of another animal floating through your bloodstream. What do you think your immune system's going to do about that? It'll make antibodies that start prowling around looking for collagen onto it. They find them in patients' own joint tissues. Well, you get a whole food plant-based diet, pull out the animal protein, flood their tissues with all the phytonutrients, all the antioxidants that are in the plant foods, and you run into the same results that Jens Kelsenkrog did in Norway. And 27 patients who all had rheumatoid arthritis, put on a water fast for a week, put them on a gluten-free plant-based diet. I had to shorten this, but the vast majority of them had remission of their symptoms, and a year later, those who were still on the diet still were symptom-free. And here's Olaf Lindahl's study with his asthmatic patients, and he had 35 severely asthmatic folks, put them on a plant-based diet. 71% reported improvement in 4 months. 92% of them a year later were vastly improved, significant improvement, and decrease in asthma symptoms. In all cases, medication was withdrawn or drastically reduced. You ask most pulmonologists, do you think what your patients are eating has any effect on their asthma? Oh, no, it has nothing to do with it. Doctor, have you looked? Type 2 diabetes. Again, high-fat diets, as our paleo folks are going to find out the hard way, make you insulin resistant. They have normal blood sugars because they don't eat any sugar. But the fact is their insulin mechanisms are all clogged up with the fat. They do eat any sugar. The sugar spike. They're all pre-diabetic. But because they shun all the sugars, they say, see, it helps my blood sugar. But the truth is they're all pre-diabetic. You put them on a whole food plant-based diet, and this is Barnard and Jenkins' classic study, that it was even more effective than the American Dietetic Association's diet. And we see this all the time. The patients, the doctors who practice a plant-based lifestyle medicine have a stable full of these kind of patients who used to be big and obese and grossly diabetic, and adopt a whole food plant-based diet. It's mostly fiber and water. You can't hold weight on it. It makes you nice and lean. And their insulin receptors clear out, and the diabetes goes away. And I've got dozens of patients. I used to have diabetes. No one ever told me that those words could come out of a patient's mouth. They're always going to be diabetic. You have diabetes. You'll always be diabetic. No, it goes away. Again, it's the body's defense to keep too much sugar coming into the bloodstream. But it's a whole food plant-based diet is the key to diabetes. Dermatology, nobody told me the effect of dairy on acne, but it turns out that the casein protein, the lactalbumin proteins turn on TORC1 and makes the skin oils, the oil glands put a very acidic oil that clogs up their oil glands, sets them up for acne. Again, you see the TORC1 turned on by the cow protein, and you get them off the animal proteins, and it's not 100% magic panacea, but it's step one. If you're trying to clear the skin of an asthmatic teenager, the dairy's got to go. And then we come to the number one killer in both our societies, and a whole food plant-based diet. And for those of you not familiar with what we're talking about here, it's nothing weird and exotic. It's ordering the bean chili instead of the beef chili. It's not that huge a change. You're talking about breakfast if you eat it at all. Some people just drink water, but porridge and fruit for breakfast. Lunches and dinners are big colorful salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, really filling vegetable stir fries and curries and chilies, and wonderful foods that you can eat all you want of. As I said, it's mostly fiber and water. It passes right on through. And some lovely fruit for dessert. This type of diet does wonderful things. Here's the wall of the artery, and the a little complex here, but the oxidized cholesterol drew in these macrophages to engulf them, in which case they made things worse by generating a bunch of free radicals, reactive oxygen species, and you wind up with this nasty plaque. Atherosclerotic plaques do not develop on the artery wall because your LDL's too high. Okay, well, the cardiologists are locked into this number. What's your LDL? What's your total cholesterol? What's your particle size? A numbers game. This is an inflammatory disease. These plaques develop because these arteries are being injured. Meal after meal of cooked animal protein, fried vegetable oil, high fructose corn syrup, phosphoric acid in the cola drinks, this constant chemical barrage from modern cuisine is what's ripping up the artery linings and setting this process off. It's not a matter of how high is your LDL. Take responsibility, doctor. Your patients are inflaming their artery walls from their diet. Well, you bathe these arteries with meal after meal of antioxidant-rich, dark green leafy vegetables, and as the weeks go by and the months go by, these antioxidants percolate into the wall of the arteries. They neutralize the free radicals there. So the foam cells leave, they outmigrate. And you see the plaques getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And this precious endothelial lining that you want gossamer smooth reestablishes itself and becomes thicker and thicker, not by magic, but because the bone marrow is constantly putting out showers of stem cells that reupholster the arteries like new paving stones. And coronary artery disease is a reversible disease. And those of you who've seen Dr. Esselstyn's classic picture, I apologize for going over information that you're already aware of. But if you've not seen this arteriogram, this is from a 46-year-old surgeon, colleague of Dr. Esselstyn. This is the left anterior descending artery in his heart. The whole artery is supposed to look nice and white and thick like this dye column here, but here there's this rat-eaten part here. These are atherosclerotic plaques encroaching into the blood flow channel. This man was so clogged up that they couldn't do surgery on him. There was no place to plug the graft in downstream. And he didn't know what else to do. Talked with Dr. Esselstyn, went on a whole food plant-based diet, and again, meal after meal of dark green leafy vegetables, antioxidant-rich salads and fruits, etc. Did the process that I described there, neutralized the free radicals, etc. and 30 months of running a healthy, antioxidant-rich bloodstream diet through this patient's bloodstream turned this artery into that artery. These plaques melt away. This is a reversible disease. Nobody told me this. The cardiologists today, nobody's telling them that. Oh, you're going to need stents. You're going to need statins forever, stents, and a bypass. Doctor, where do you think this is coming? Just aging. That's normal age. Everybody gets this. Yeah, everybody who eats a standard Western diet gets this. This is reversible disease. How can we withhold this information? Well, every cardiologist who's seen this should have picked up the phone and called Dr. Essler. How'd you do this? What's your secret? This is my whole career. I'm battling this disease. How did you turn this around? If they had integrity, they were true seekers of truth, they'd all be on the phone to him. What did he get? Crickets. No, they want to hear that. Like Galileo's critics didn't want to look through the telescope to see the moon's going around Jupiter there. They said, we are not the center of the universe. They didn't want to look at this because they make their living putting in stents and prescribing statins. But who's important, the cardiologist's income or the patient's health? These are real people, and this is a reversible disease. The medical students need to know this. And, well, people never change. They don't change what they do. And it's getting to be more and more common. Everybody knows somebody who has changed their diet and is improving their health. And they're tired of being fat and sick and having a bag full of pills that they take with them anywhere. They want to change. Not everybody, but many, many do. And there's a patient of mine, I got him on a whole food plant-based diet in 12 weeks. He dropped to 12 kilos of weight, got him off his blood pressure pills, got him off his insulin. People do change. And we're told to, and I show this to the medical students. Here's the statement of ethics. And I use that term, it's unethical to withhold this information from our patients. I chose that word intentionally. This is the statement of principles of medical ethics from the American Medical Association. Physicians shall continue to study, apply, and advance scientific knowledge and make relevant information available to our patients. We are mandated to tell this to our patients and to our colleagues. It is unethical, literally, to withhold this from our patients any longer. It's not too late. It's not too difficult. If you are not familiar with a film called Forks Over Knives, you can see it on Netflix. It will change your life. If you don't want to get into an argument with your brother-in-law who's obese and on statins, just sit down and watch Forks Over Knives with him. Let the movie do the talking. It's not only a very powerful documentary testimonial to the power of a healthy diet, but if you go to their website, well, where do I go from here? What do I shop for? What do I have for lunch tomorrow? I go to their website. They've got tons of recipes and a meal plan and support groups. There is help available. So I tell the students, I tell the residents, if you've got a patient in front of you with any of these diseases, before you order another $1,000 scan, before you order another $500 set of blood tests, stop. Ask them what they ate yesterday. And if it's full of burgers and buffalo wing pepperoni pizza, all you need to know, that's where you start. That's where the problem is, doctor. It's nothing that abstruse. Well, now what do I do? And in America, listen, maybe so, but I don't have time for this. I only have 7 minutes per patient. Besides, they don't pay me for nutritional counseling. I don't have time for this. It's easier to write their statin prescription, and so they do. I say, fair enough. You may not even follow this yourself, but you at least, knowing what we know now, you owe them a handout going out the door. By the way, you want to get rid of your high blood pressure. You want to get rid of your diabetes. You want to get rid of your lupus. I have a 3-page handout. Any of you are welcome, and people who are watching this online. Here's my first page on how to lose weight. Here's the second page on a day of healthy eating. You want to grab a picture of that. And the third is a page full of resources, websites to go to, movies to see, places where you can get some support. You at least owe them that on the way out the door. It's unethical to withhold this information from our patients. And if I have a patient like this, I at least owe them, one, a handout. And the second thing I owe them, at least to offer them an appointment with a plant-based dietitian. I am so thankful to dietitians who have long just been shills for the meat and dairy industry, given the usual take the skin off the chicken advice and skim milk advice. Finally, the light is starting to go on in the dietetic community. You know, we're getting more and more plant-based dietitians. Any American city, you just plug in plant-based dietitian, your screen fills up with people who will do this counseling for you. I tell the doctors, you don't have to know anything. Just know that the patient sitting in front of you has a dietary disease. Send them to the plant-based dietitian. Let her do the counseling. Let her take him shopping. Let her watch the videos with him. And then see the patient back in a month to see how they're doing. The dietitians take away the doctor's excuses. And they're a valuable part of the team at this point. Well, here we are in the UK. Your website may not look like that. But I'm happy to tell you that the British Dietetic Association confirms that well-planned vegan diets can support healthy living in people of all ages. And right here in your fair city, the London dietitians certainly seem favorably predisposed to plant-based diets. Find these people, make friends with them, start referring patients to them, pull them onto your team, and let them do the counseling so you can get on with any other type of medicine you need to practice. But it's just, well, that's what they do in America. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's so exciting, which I'll talk about in a minute. And finally, and again, not to dip into the bring down concerns that we had, but the people who are promoting paleo diet, oh, paleo is the best way to eat, man. Everybody ought to be eating paleo. It's the best diet. Doctor, are you seriously proposing a flesh-based meal 3 times a day for 8 billion people? It would take 3 planet Earths to do that. And again, we've already been through this, but we're sitting here, you know, people are focused on what's my patient's cholesterol. Great cholesterol numbers are not going to mean a thing if there's no food in the supermarkets, if people are roaming the streets looking, you know, going through dumpsters looking for sustenance. Every single environmental destructive force we face is driven by large-scale animal agriculture. This is why they're cutting down the forest. Most of the rivers are running brown with topsoil that are running off fields of corn and soybeans for animal fodder. Most water in our country is irrigating alfalfa, corn, and soybean fields for animal fodder. Most water is polluted with herbicides and pesticides off corn and soybean fields and manure off of feedlots. Most species are driven to extinction because we're taking their land to grow animal flesh. And people don't realize the direct role that large-scale industrial agriculture, animal agriculture, plays in greenhouse gas production. Every year on this planet, we raise and slaughter 80 billion living creatures. Every one of them is breathing out carbon dioxide. Every one of them is eating grains grown with ammonia fertilizers that release nitric oxide into the air. Most of them are belching out methane. The animals are a major problem, a major factor in the shrinkage of our ice caps here. People, well, what about all the trucks and gasoline that we burn? It's transportation. Don't be seduced by that. It's a phony argument. And about hundreds of thousands, millions of trucks on the road, all putting out diesel fuel. Yeah, that's true. It has nothing to do with meat. Oh, yeah? One question reduces that to meaninglessness. What's in the lorries? The entire farming industry is in those trucks. Full of fuel and fertilizer, tractor parts, cattle, things to grow animal flesh with. The entire restaurant industry is in those trucks. The entire fast food industry is in those trucks. Think of all the people driving to eat flesh-based meals. Think of all the gasoline being burned to generate electricity to keep meat cold in millions of freezers and refrigerators. You don't have to refrigerate barley, but you got to refrigerate meat. Our flesh production and consumption has its tentacles into every aspect of our environmental problems, and to compartmentalize it to transport versus animals, it's a phony distinction. And these poor bears are on this iceberg melting due to our flesh consumption, to our cheeseburger obsession. And as he mentioned about the oceans, We are clear-cutting the oceans. We are strip-mining the oceans. It's time to let the oceans heal. It's time to let the fish off the hook. And basically comes down to one phrase. We've used fishing up. No matter what it provided throughout human history, we've used the oceans up. It's time to let them heal. It's time to stop kidding ourselves. This is Dr. Appalander. You saw Dr. Appalander this morning giving that talk. His book is called Comfortably Unaware. This is his website. This is right where the meat and dairy industry want us. Comfortably unaware. You just keep eating those burgers. Don't you worry about where it's coming from. You stay comfortably unaware. I highly recommend his website and his book to educate yourself about the most important issue we all face. We've used meat eating up. We've used it up. No matter what the mighty hunter did in those ancient caves, doesn't matter. And here we are, 2019, faced with destruction of our planet. We've used it up. It's time. We are being asked as individuals, if you want to be healthy, change to a plant-based diet, and as a species, if we want to survive on this planet, as a species, we have to evolve our diet to become plant eaters, big time for real. We've used meat eating up. That argument just holds no weight any longer. It's time to leave caveman thinking behind, because it's going to take us to a dismal fate. So if we do, it's the one thing we could all do. You can't put solar panels in everybody's house tomorrow. You can't give everybody a hydrogen-powered car tomorrow. But everybody could order the bean chili instead of the beef chili. It's the one thing we could do right now, all of us, and it's the one thing that would save our futures. If we did, if tomorrow, if I could push the button, boom, and everybody were vegan, the world would heal. We'd need a lot less land to feed ourselves. The forests would come back. The trees would take the carbon dioxide out of the air. The soils would stabilize. The waters would run pure again. We need so much less water. And the land would become healthy, that we would become healthy. It is the magic key. And we've got to start talking about it, like Dr. Appalander said. Nobody's talking about this, like Harry Potter. But there are some people talking about it. It's starting to happen, even in my noble profession, laggard that it is. And I'm distressed by my profession. I'm embarrassed that I have to be giving these lectures to my colleagues and to the students. We shouldn't have to do this. As scientists, we should have known this and been promulgating this long ago. But it's starting to happen, and plant-based medicine is starting to awaken. Here's the University of California at Davis. They've got a program in plant-based eating. Here's Kaiser Permanente, the largest for-profit healthcare organization in America, and they know that if even a fraction of their patients become plant-based, the billions of dollars they will save from chests not open and scans not done and ICU beds not occupied. They want their patients to go plant-based, and they know that it will heal these diseases. But every individual doctor, the little doctor near alone in the surgery in some small town, you can do something. Here's my friends at Rochester, New York, and they're their lifestyle medicine practice, and they're just GPs, but they offer programs to their patients and to their colleagues, and they offer Jumpstart programs, a 6-week nutrition course for physicians. Everybody can do something. Starting with your own example. People watch what you have for lunch. They watch how your body changes. Don't underestimate what each individual person can do. But if you're a practitioner, and these folks, they're in the evening when their office is empty, they in the waiting room, they set up tables and they put a hot plate and a blender, and they should bring patients in. They do nighttime cooking courses on how to make salad dressings and smoothies. Everybody can do something. There's no excuses any longer. Here's a Plantrition project. These are plant-based doctors from around the world are meeting. There's getting to be more and more every year. The next meeting is in Oakland. I invite everybody to come. I'll be speaking there. But it's officially getting recognized that plant-based physicians, and it's so thrilling. We had them last year. I met doctors from Ireland and Israel and India and Pakistan and the Bahamas. The light is going on everywhere. It's so exciting. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but you have a British College of Lifestyle Medicine here. They're having their meeting in Orlando. In October, I'll be there. And if you want to take a picture, you want to educate yourself, because again, a few formal medical courses are teaching this. But you educate yourselves, doctors, and take E. Cornell's course, go to Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They've got wonderful CME courses I'll show you in a minute. Jeff Novick's a great plant-based dietitian. Go to Michael Greger's nutritionfacts.org. Ginny Messina's Vegan RD. Dr. McDougall's newsletters are classic. Dr. Furman's has some excellent courses. Go to my website and see my video, Thriving on a Plant-Based Diet. Here's Dr. Esselson's book on reversing heart disease, Dr. Barnard's book, Reversing Diabetes. The information's out there. There's no excuses. Here's at PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. If you go to their website, you'll see a ton of just excellently done resources. Here's their here's evidence-based medicine for weight control. Here it is for type 2 diabetes. Here's heart disease. There's plenty of information. Again, physician, school thyself. And here, one of my favorite is PCRM. Here is their app that you can download on your cell phone, and it's complete plant-based nutrition. You admit a patient with lupus, you got a patient with rheumatoid arthritis. What do you feed them? Well, punch in lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. Here's the kind of diet you ought to be feeding them, and it's right on your cell phone. There's really no excuse, and it's absolutely free. It's nutrition guide at pcrm.org. Okay, got a picture of that. The philosopher Goethe said, what you know about, you see. Once you know about something, you start seeing it everywhere. Well, once you know about plant-based nutrition and the power it has to reverse these diseases, there's no going back. They say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain. And so I'm going around to the medical schools trying to tear down the curtain. And I tell the students, you know, you're going to be told that all you can do is manage these chronic diseases. Knowing what we know now and the reversibility of these diseases, I ask the students and the practicing clinicians of a sensitive question, but there's no reason to pull back any longer. You want to heal these patients or don't you? Why'd you go into medicine? You want to heal these people? Then get real about what they're eating. Stop playing the game that I just can manage your diabetes, manage your high blood pressure. You want to heal them? Then get real with what they're eating and get them on a plant-based diet and watch these diseases go away. And medicine becomes fun again. You see, your patients get healthy. I'm the happiest doctor I know because my patients get healthy right in front of my eyes. Isn't that why we went into medicine? So I'm going around to the medical schools giving those students the lecture I wish somebody had given me and tell them that these diseases are reversible and plant-based nutrition is the key to this, and don't run away from it, embrace it, and do it for yourself. There's nothing more pathetic than a doctor walking in a room with a big pot belly and a pocket full of statins and lisinopril tablets and trying to give health advice to their patients. That's pathetic. That's sad. The physicians should be good examples of health, and they can do that if they adopt a plant-based diet themselves. So I tell them the era of applied nutrition-based lifestyle medicine is dawning. It's finally happening. And yes, lifestyle is more than just lining your bed up to the north there. It's what are you going to have for breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I invite them to become the happiest doctor they know. I tell them the plant-based wave is breaking. Line up your surfboards and ride that wave. It'll take not only your patients to better health, but it'll take you to a satisfying medical career, and that is why you went into medicine in the first place. So that's the main message I delivered to the students. I've now delivered it to you, and I think the best words we can have is let's eat lunch. Thank you very much.